Hey guys, this is probably a video you've been looking forward to in quite a while. Well, this is it. Mountain section 2 out of 3 completed. Let's just get started. I used a piece of foam to trace on where I wanted it to be cut. Now, I used a pencil because I noticed this, doesn't this give like the styrofoam like on how it wants to be like cut or like pulled apart, you could say. Anyways, I'm just going to be using a regular Elmer's glue bottle. Decided to use some little chunk pieces to fill in the space. Ooh, Menards, 11% rebate on everything. Nice, Halloween stuff. Well, you know what, Menards? With this, we're going to be using it for the layout. Now, as if it is, I'm going to be using newspaper instead of other things like tin foil. Newspaper works better. Well, that's how the styrofoam is. Now it is time to do the rock molds from Woodland Scenics. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys all know what this is. It's basically a rubber rock molds where you take the plaster and you just pour it in. And like when you pop them out, they just are literally rock molds. Now, here I am with a paint stick. And I should have just poured it in, basically. It would have turned out a lot better. Because, don't put too much on there. At that point, I just did that. Now, here's something that we've probably used for a project in, some point. And that is plaster cloth. Now, plaster cloth, that's basically how it is, you just dip it in water, and then when you put it on your project that you're making, it acts like a surface. Oh, and one thing to mention when you're doing the plasters cloths is when you grab it with one hand, you want to make sure that you grab it with two, because when you grab it with one hand, there's a better chance of it sticking together. Well, there's that. Now it's time to add the rock molds. I popped out the rock molds, which I actually did 3 times the rock molds. Yeah, I did the part 3 times because I knew this piece would be a really big mountain. So I made another mixture here of water and plaster. And how most way people do it is you take the plaster rock piece and you take the plaster and you just stick them in with the plaster, because the main structure of your project is plaster after all. Here's me just adding the rock molds on where I want them to be later. And just like the rock molds, I would either just take the plaster, I would just pour it on there, then I would just put the rock molds on there, and then I would just stick them in. Or, since it's like glue basically with plaster rocks, I would literally just take them and put them on the back here, and then I would just stick them on later. Since this is now done, I decided to go back to the part I started on here with less rock molds and put in all the little extra ones that I made. I also decided to put leftover plaster on it just so it looks a little bit more rocky, because after all, this part does not have many rock molds on it, which I forgot to do. And when you're putting these rock molds on, make sure you put enough plaster on so they can stick, because you're going to see something later on this video. Next, we're going to be doing the painting. Now, I'm going to be using this brown earth color from Woodland Scenics. Yes, it's called Woodland Scenics Earth Undercoat. Now, this stuff is really nice because one thing that I noticed is that it comes in many shades, because I added a lot of water in it and it came in very light. So here's me just adding a bit more paint to it. And of course, when you add more paint to the water, it creates a very dark color. I'm pretty sure that's how all Woodland Scenics paints work. Here's me just doing the top part, and I made sure this part was brown because I knew that it would be grass. Next, we're going to be adding the stone with Woodland Scenics Stone Gray. Yes, this was the second paint that I got. And there was a third one which I got, which was concrete, which I'll be mixing later with this stone gray. After adding some water, it's now time to use it. Made sure I had a new brush for this because I, of course, did not want the earth undercoat in the stone gray to mix, which didn't really matter because it would look realistic no matter what. Here's me just doing some touch-ups. Now it's time for the grass with Woodland Scenics turf. Now the most way how people would do it is they would take the turf and or like snow or ballast or gravel. They would spray their scenery with this Woodland Scenic cementing. Now, do not spray on how I'm holding it right here, like how it's showing it with the bottle cap leaking all over my hand. Make sure it is faced upwards, basically, when you're doing it. Next, basically, it's pretty simple. You just take the turf and then you're just gonna put it on there. Now, I don't know if you guys have problems with your like turf or like gravel or snow. It's because when you want to hold it the right way too, so you can make sure that you can get enough of that grass or snow or whatever you have to get on there pretty good, because it's not really easy to get out. And then yeah, here's me just putting the turf on. Like I said, it is not that easy to get out on the side with the less holes on there, so you kind of have to hold it at the right angle so like you can get much of it as like, or the amount of like you want it to be out of there. Now here's me just adding some more cementing to the sides here just so I can have a little bit of grass on the rocks basically. Now you're probably wondering, what are you going to do with all those little splotches of plaster cloth scene? Well, that's what I'm going to do here with these shrubs or clump foliage that I got from an old tree kit. Basically kind of filling in all those gaps that I have with the generic Elmer's glue bottle. And here's the somewhat final product. I hope you guys enjoyed this part. Sorry about it being delayed. Well, subscribe. Thanks for watching.